Well, I mean, I think it's just the idea that now you change the normal dynamics and now people don't have to do the things they had to back in the day. I think that's just all people are really attributing to feminism, because even sometimes when women still work, they still operate the same way they would as if they didn't work, you know? They
Do you think
still
that was
work.
feminism
No, I'm just saying the idea is that, the struggles that people are having, some people are saying is attributed to that the behaviors or the things that, people have to do now is different than it was before.
though? Hmm.
If a woman didn't have no money, she had to rely on the guy with money. So she's more likely not to leave because she doesn't have anything to fall back on. So now you enter in quote unquote feminism. Women get their own stuff, they get their own money, they're going to school and graduating more than the men, and they're getting their money, they're getting their bags, and they're doing all this other stuff. Now they're like, well, now the dynamic has changed, and I don't have to struggle with you the way that I did before because I can just do this stuff on my own. So that's kind of the reason why I say people really get upset at feminism, because it has changed the dynamics more times than not. But like I said, that eventually women go right back to before feminism. It's just like, yeah, I don't really want to do this. I want to just go home, chill. I let you take the reins. I didn't did my part, and then they just fall back sometimes. But yeah, I think that's the gist of it.
Anybody else wanted to add to that? It's so funny because I don't think that I'm like torn because I don't I don't I don't think black women, I mean, so I know black women have never not worked. We've always worked. So that's not it, right?
Mm-mm.
Now the jobs that we have we're able to do have definitely changed. But I hate when people say, "Oh, it's changed us." We never had that luxury of staying home. We've always been workers.
Yeah,
So
you
I
always been workers, but the thing is now that you don't have to struggle because y'all, it's like if you make 80,000 and he make 40,000, you're gonna be
Mhm.
like, well, shoot, I don't need to struggle with you, and I can go do my own thing. I think that the argument for most people is not that women or specifically black women didn't work. It's just that the way that they work now and how they are able to make more and do more, they can choose not to struggle with you. They can just struggle by themselves.
So you're saying feminism allowed women to make more money. In that way, they made them feel like they didn't have to stick around, right?
Correct. They're like, well, shoot, if I can survive on my own and I don't have to deal with what you do, then I could just go do what I need to do and find somebody until I find somebody that agrees with what I want to do. And then I'll just wait until that happens.
Do you guys agree with HD's statement?
Yeah, I think that's partly why I don't want to say if all men are just men in these spaces, because like I said, my reality and what my day to day is not like what I hear in these spaces. But why men are having such a hard time now is because they're stuck on wanting things to be like it was, right? As opposed to adapting and adjusting to change to still get what they want. They're going to have to rely on a new set of skills now, just like how, factory workers and stuff like that had to adjust to the change in technology, right? You can still get a job, but you just got to up your skills, right? You have to learn and develop a different set of skills. I think men are struggling with gaining a different set of skills that they're going to need to move in the relationship aspect. So now women can make their own money, right? So they have access and ability to not have to be dependent in that manner. So it's a lot of ish that they don't have to deal with, whereas before they did not have an option because, they needed this, because it wasn't just about money for them, because like y'all said, we always worked, but there were certain aspects that women just didn't have rights to, right? We couldn't own our own home. Like everything had to be in a man's name, right? You couldn't have a bank account, you couldn't own credit cards, you couldn't do any of that. So even if you worked, that money was his. And so now I look at it, whereas now that's no longer an obstacle, which put men in a position that they have to develop a different set of skills to feel depended on. You know what I'm saying? And the skills that they need to develop is in more of the emotional aspect, communication aspect, and those are the most difficult areas that men have a hard time working with. And so I think that's why they get upset about this whole, feminism thing, and instead of just leveling up in a different area.
Mark,
You see the question in the chat? How did Black feminism start? Do any of you know?
Yeah, I had found that even it goes far back as Harriet Tubman. Like I was just doing like a little bit of research, and a lot of times, when certain things start, a white face is put on it, right? That it was, from what I was reading, it was saying that there's always been where feminism has always intersected with racism. So even back when they were like abolitionists and stuff like that, you had men like Frederick Douglass and stuff like that that actually spoke on giving rights to women too, because it was like, if one ain't free, we're all totally not free. So they should also have the same rights and stuff like that. So it started as far back as that.
Yes, Sojourner Truth
Truth.
was, yes,
Yep.
correct.
Yeah.
So it started with the women's suffrage. Everybody, women wanted to vote, and then that moved on. So there were different ways of feminism that occurred. Mm-hmm. But to say that, so the whole point of feminism was to make sure that women it was equality. For example, if I'm doing the same job as you, Marcus, I should be getting paid I should be getting paid the same thing as you. Feminism is why we are able to have, conversations on this podcast today without having to have our husband's permission to do so. So from a female's perspective, of course, we're going to want those rights, right? That's like me saying you don't have rights, taking away your rights, and you're going to want those rights. I think what has happened is there are different waves of feminism that have come in, and it's taken it somewhere all the way over here. And all of the stuff that was probably a good thing for women is being lost in the sauce, so to speak. Because you can't even wear, short sleeve shirts. Back, you had to wear a certain outfit. You had to cover, certain body parts. Of course, most of them need to be covered, but to the extreme of things, and but feminism helped you to be able to do those things. So
that was a part of that whole like flapper period. Like in the 20s, they were the counterculture, bucking up against this system of female oppression in regards to that. So that's why they cut their hair real short, because they weren't even allowed to or supposed to cut their hair, wear short skirts, things like that, with the, what she was saying, with the shoulders out. All of that occurred during that, flapper era.
Do y'all think that it made by making these changes and fighting for the equality of women, it's made the lives of women better or worse?
Um,
I would say it
well,
depends on
On
it
what?
in what
depends on how
area?
you utilize those freedoms.
Yeah.
Like,
So
so
any
when you say what area, give me the area where you think it made it better and where you think it made it worse.
I think in a financial sense, having financial independence, definitely, because it allowed a mobility for women to, if they were in relationships that were unsafe and unhealthy, that
Mhm.
they no longer had to stay in those relationships and rely on a man, because of the fact that they now would be able to have access to finances, access to a bank account, access to being able to own their own home, things like that. So, in that sense, absolutely.
I also think that just living your own life the way you want to live your life, it's your life. You have one life to live it and not have somebody over your shoulder telling you how to live your life. Just the freedom to be able to do that. And most importantly, the opportunity to have other jobs. I cannot even imagine having to work in I'm sorry, I was going to say white woman's kitchen and being bossed around like I'm some underclassman. Negative. Watching your kids and neglecting mine. Negative. It's not gonna happen.